voice of God, not the official. The Chinese culture, of course, people, like to say both, but I don't think so. I think it's the audio. The audio much more powerful. So music developed in China very, very early. And very complicated instruments, all these unearthed instruments. But visual ideas, like sculptures. As people say sculptures were introduced to China from India. Now we think, no, you can see that in the Qing dynasty, unearthed all these statues, clay statues of soldiers. So the word sage, unfortunately, if you study Chinese, the modern script of sage doesn't review the notion at all. The classical notion about the sage has a year radical. In other words, it's great. Some people even decide, good sinologists decide to translate the Chinese word sage as audience, the great listener, as the sage. That's true with Buddhism. Buddha's earlobe is very low. He's a great listener. And if you can listen without judging, then you reach an even higher level of human comprehension. So Xunzi really believed that civilized way of interaction and music, that's the world which is the world that politics should be involved in. You have a question.
What do you mean by listen without judging?
Pardon me?
What do you mean by listen without judging?
The best example is mother's relationship to the crying baby. Right? The mother's relationship to her baby is always without judgment. In other words, without judgment meaning very, very receptive. And sometimes we hear something, we immediately sense whether we like it or don't like it, whether it's good or bad. But, well, the mother's ability to hear, or even the sage hearing, is to wait until the last note is played and to make some kind of sympathetic understanding of what's going on. So no sound is necessarily inauthentic. So all the sounds need to be very carefully considered. So Xunzi, in a way, redefined what politics is. Politics is to develop an environment. The environment is rich with all kinds of differences, not uniformity. That's the legalist idea of government. The Taoist idea of government is totally useless. You have to get rid of the government. Otherwise, how can you be naturalistic? The neoliberal tradition also has this notion that market functions all by itself. Any kind of government intervention is disastrous. Now we know that sometimes intervention is absolutely necessary, but the notion is laissez-faire, right? Very famous laissez-faire. Xunzi's idea is you respect differences, even though and also he's realistic. So he's not romantic. He understands how the world is organized in terms of wealth and power. Many examples of a tree, very short tree, happens to be on the top, mountain top, very high. If a person who is able to speak, following the wind, the voice will carry. So all kinds of situations is such that we are all unequal. And if you occupy a strong position, you become more powerful than those who do not occupy a strong position. If you have more resources, you'll be able to do more than others. So these are realistic situations. And yet, with this division, the society can still be harmonized because of these differences. And of course, provided that any position of power and influence is open. Not someone who's born with power, then will control power. Xunzi is very, very critical of these kings that are not qualified to be kings. These are just manipulators of power. So politics is an environment that is not only secure, it's economically, basically everybody is provided for, and there's a certain level of prosperity. That's politics. But that's not enough. So security and economics are minimum conditions. But a society will have to provide opportunity for people not only to survive but to flourish. So the purpose of politics is to provide every human being the possibility of realizing himself or herself according to his own self-realization. This is politics. And if we understand politics in its all kind of, I call it, in terms of its full dimension, every aspect, you have a
Just a question, when you say politics, are you, do you also mean government? Are you using
both.
the words interchangeably?
Well, not interchangeably, but politics is understood as rectification. And
Yeah.
politics is broader than governance. Politics will involve in all kinds of regulatory systems. Our sense of governance, for example, if say the governance of this university is basically by administrators. But if you say politics, it's greater. The politics of Department of Economics. This notion that people in history may not have a good memory. Economists normally do not manage to balance their budget. And sociologists have terrible social relationships. Psychologists do not have any really deep thinking about their psychology. And that's why Kissinger made the remark, politics of university is always fierce, vicious, because the outcome is so small. Fighting for a table that facing the window, or a table that's not. Fighting for a dome that has a view or not. All these things are absolutely critical. This is politics. Politics is much broader than this. That's true with Xunzi. And so, if you look at Xunzi's notion about governance, which is more than politics, is more than governance, then it will have to allow a person to flourish, and the person who flourishes is never an egoist and individualist. It's not just for the sake of oneself as an individual, but for the society as a whole. So the person will have to have historical consciousness. The person will have to have certain kind of aesthetic appreciation of music. The person will have to have an idea of meaning which is not just sociological. The person will have to become able to cultivate, friendship,